Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। The book is supposed to be
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatya Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Canto 5, titled The Creative Impetus. Chapter number 1, titled The Activities of Maharaj Prevrat. Text number 6. यर्हि वावह राजन्स राजपुत्रः प्रियव्रतः परमभागवतो नारदस्य चरणोपसे वयाञ्जसावगत परमार्थ सत्तवो ब्रह्मसत्रेण दीक्षिष्यमाणो वनीतल परिपालनायामनाथ प्रवर गुणैकांत भाजनताया स्वपितरप मंत्रितो भगवते वासुदेव एवा व्यवधान समाधि योगेन समावेशित सकल कारक क्रियकलाप नैवाभ्यनन्दद यद्यपि तद अप्रयात्मनातव्यं तद अधिकरण आत्मनो न्यस्माद् असतोपि पराभवम् अन्वीक्षमाणः. Word to word meanings. Yerhi, because. Vavaha, indeed. Rajan, O king. Saha, he. Rajaputraha, the prince. Priyavrataha, Priyavrata. Parama, supreme. Bhagavataha, devotee. Naradasya, of Narada. Charana, the lotus feet. Upasevaya, by serving. Anjasa, quickly. Avagata, became aware of. Parama artha, transcendental subject matter. Sa tattvaha, with all knowable facts. Brahma satrena, by continuous discussion of the Supreme. Dikshishyamanaha, desiring to fully dedicate himself. Avanitala, the surface of the globe. Paripalanaya, to rule over. Amanata, directed in the revealed scriptures. Pravara, highest. Guna, of qualities. Gana, the sum total. Ekanta, without deviation. Bhajanataya, because of his possessing. Swapitra, by his father. Upamantritaha, being asked. Bhagavati,
Bhagavati,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of God,
Vasudeve,
Vasudeva,
the all-pervading Lord,
the all-pervading Lord,
Eva,
Eva,
certainly,
certainly,
Avyavadhana,
Avyavadhana,
without cessation,
without cessation,
Samadhi Yogena,
Samadhi Yogena,
by practicing yoga in complete absorption,
by practicing yoga in complete
Samaveshita,
Samaveshita,
completely dedicated,
completely dedicated,
Sakala,
Sakala,
all, Karaka,
Karaka,
senses,
senses,
Kriya Kalapaha,
Kriya Kalapaha,
whose total activities,
whose total activities,
na,
na,
not,
not,
eva,
eva,
thus,
thus,
abhyanandat,
Abhyanandan,
welcomed,
welcome,
yadyapi,
Yadyapi,
although, tat,
that,
that, apratyamnatavyam,
Pratyamana,
not be rejected for any reason,
not to be rejected for any
tat
reason,
adhikarane,
Tadadhikarane,
in occupying that post,
in occupying the post,
atmanaha,
Atmanaha,
of himself,
of himself,
anyasmat,
Anyasmat,
by other engagements, asataha,
Asataha,
material,
material,
api,
Api,
certainly,
certainly,
parabhavam,
Parabhavam,
deterioration,
deterioration,
anvikshamanaha,
Anvikshamanaha,
foreseen.
foreseen.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Translation. Shukdev Goswami continued, My dear King, Prince Priyavrata. My dear King, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing bhakti yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus, he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. Purport. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Chhadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistar Payeche Keba. Without serving the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava or spiritual master, no one has ever attained perfect liberation from material bondage. Prince Priyavrata regularly served the lotus feet of Narada, and thus Prince perfectly understood the transcendental subjects in truth. Sa-tattvatah. Sa-tattvaha. The word Sa-tattvaha means that Priyavrata knew all facts about the spirit soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the relationship between the spirit soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he also knew all about this material world and the relationship of the spirit soul and the Supreme Lord within the material world. Thus the prince decided to engage himself only in rendering service to the Lord. When Priyavrata's father, Swayambhuva requested him to accept the responsibility of ruling over the world, he did not welcome the suggestion. This is the symptom of a great liberated devotee. Even though engaged in worldly affairs, he does not take pleasure in them, but remains always absorbed in the Lord's service. While thus serving the Lord, he deals externally with the worldly affairs without being affected. For example, although he has no attraction for his children, he cares for them and educates them to become devotees. Similarly, he speaks to his wife with affectionate words, but he is not attached to her. By rendering devotional service, a devotee acquires all good qualities of the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna had 16,000 wives, all of them very beautiful, and although he dealt with each of them as a beloved husband, he was not attracted or attached to any of them. In the same way, although a devotee may enter family life and act very affectionately towards his wife and children, he is never attached to these activities. This verse states that by serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master, Prince Priyavrata very soon attained the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. This is the only way to advance in spirituality, as stated in the Vedas. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasya itte kathita artha prakashante mahatmanah. If one has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is revealed in Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.23. A devotee always thinks of the Lord continuously. While chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the words Krishna and Hare immediately remind him of all the Lord's activities. Since his entire life is engaged in the service of the Lord, a devotee cannot forget the Lord at any time. Just as an ordinary man always engages his mind in material activities, a devotee always engages his mind in spiritual activities. This is called Brahma Sattva, or meditating upon the Supreme Lord always. Prince Priyavrata was perfectly initiated into this practice by Sri Narada.
ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च। श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधा तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरिः ओम्।
Hare Krishna. Translation once again. Shukdev Goswami continued, my dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility to rule over the world.
So, this is the character of Maharaj, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata is being discussed. And very soon, the chapter is building up towards a point where Maharaj Priyavrata, or the glory of the character of Maharaj Priyavrata, will be very soon highlighted. As Parikshit Maharaj has asked the question earlier, that although Maharaj Priyavrata was a liberated soul, he had nothing to do with the material world. He was constantly absorbed in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the association and under the guidance of the spiritual master, Narad Muni, as the last line of this purport says, Prince Priyavrata was perfectly initiated into this practice of Brahma Satra, that is, meditating upon the Supreme Lord always by Sri Narada. So he was already in that consciousness. So the Parikshit Maharaj asks this question, that why did Maharaj Priyavrata again accept the household order of life? Or why did he again get back into the material ways of life? The Bhagavad Gita says, Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam rasvarjam rasokyasya param drashpa nivartate. By even while practicing Krishna consciousness in the initial stages, some traces of the desire to do material enjoyment may remain. But by fixing their consciousness, the sadhaka, by fixing his consciousness unto the lotus feet of the Supreme, slowly and gradually develops a higher taste. And very rarely it is seen that someone who has developed a higher taste will again come back to the lower taste. It is very rarely seen. Just like when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, any verse he has said, going back to Godhead, Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvata tattva deham punarjanmeti mameti. So giving up their body, they go back home, back to Godhead. And Prabhupada writes, they have no further obligation to come back. When we go on a vacation, we have an obligation to come back. We don't have so much money to stay in whichever place where we have gone. We don't have so much time also, we have to come back and continue the rat race of which we are a part of. So we are not allowed to enjoy up to our heart's extent, or live there up to our heart's extent. Shine punya martya lokam tam vishanti. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that even if one goes to the heavenly planets, once their pious credits are over, they have to leave. Similarly, in this human body, no matter what you are, when your time comes, you have to leave. So when somebody goes back home, back to Godhead, the only difference between the spiritual planet and the other parts of this material world is that anywhere else you go, you have an obligation to come back. But once someone goes back to the spiritual world, they have no obligation to come back. And in general, nobody even desires to come back, until and unless they are ordered by the Lord that you please go back. So one is not obliged to come back. So similarly, one who has tasted this higher rasa of Krishna consciousness, he is not obliged to go back to the lower taste, and in general never desires to accept the lower taste. When I speak about higher taste here, I mean constant engagement in the service of the Lord. That is a higher taste. And when one tries to accept a lifestyle in which one cannot constantly be engaged in full-time service of the Lord, compared to the previous state, that kind of a lifestyle is a lower state. So, in answer to that question, Shukdev Goswami is further explaining to Parikshit Maharaj by saying, my dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. So by this first line, it is becoming very clear how to become a devotee. In order to become a guru, in order to become a devotee, one has to first take shelter of the lotus feet of his guru. Then only one can achieve highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. Guru is a transparent via medium between the disciple and Krishna. In the conditioned state, it is not possible for the Jivatma to approach the Paramatma or Krishna. He needs help. And that help, seeing the sincerity of the spirit soul, the help which is sent in the life of the Jivatma, that help is called Guru. Sakshat dharitvena samasta shastra uktas tatha bhavata eva sarjati kintu prabhor yah priya eva tasya vande guruh shri charana. So the Guru, there is no difference between Guru and Krishna in the way they act to deliver the spirit soul. This is called Ekatvam. Srila Prabhupada in his purports defines Ekatvam. When two people have the same purpose, they are Ekatvam. They are one. It doesn't mean that their individuality has merged. It just means that the way they work and for the purpose for which they work is one. So therefore they represent the same purpose. Hence they are one. So similarly, Guru and Krishna are one. Guru is not Krishna, but he acts with the potency of Krishna. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says he is a transparent via medium between Krishna and the disciple. And by following the Guru, one attains success. So there is a very nice mantra which Lord Chaitanya chants. This is also called as the Sannyas mantra. When a sannyasi utters this in the mouth of another prospective disciple, then that disciple also becomes a sannyasi. Etam sa asthaya paratmanishtham adhyasitam purvatamair maharshibhi aham tarishyami durant param tamo mukundangri nishevayeva. So Lord Chaitanya is always chanting this mantra all the time. Etam sa asthaya paratmanishtham adhyasitam purvatamair maharshibhi. Simply by following in the footsteps of the acharyas, I will attain complete perfection in my spiritual life. And this has been nicely established by the revealed scriptures. Etam asthayam paratmanishtham adhyasitam purvatamaya maharshibhi. All the previous maharshis and acharyas, they also agreed to this path of devotional service and they confirm this. The Vedas also confirm this. So what should I do? Aham tarishyami durant param tamo mukundangri nishevayeva. Having faith in my Guru and the direction which my Guru and the previous acharyas have shown, I will cross over this ocean of nishains by serving the lotus feet of Krishna. Aham tarishyami durant param. This material ocean is duranta. Nobody knows its beginning and end. And which living entity can say that I will cross over the ocean? Nobody can say. But Lord Chaitanya is showing us by this verse that if somebody has implicit faith in Guru and implicit faith in Krishna, strictly speaking in this case, implicit faith in Guru, and has trust in his bona fide spiritual master, then he has the audacity to say, Aham tarishyami durant param tamo mukundangri nishevayeva. Simply by serving the lotus feet of Krishna, under the directions of my spiritual master, I will cross over the ocean of birth. Who am I? I am a dust particle in the ocean of birth and death, but I will cross over. So this is called as faith. Srila Prabhupada writes in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, faith means having trust in something which is sublime. So this is called as faith. And this faith attracts Krishna so much. This faith attracts the mercy of Guru so much. This faith is called being dependent on Guru and Krishna. And this faith is called as independence from the laws of material nature. This faith of becoming dependent on Guru and Krishna is the actual independence of the Jivatma from this material world. So, this Guru Bhakti is very necessary to become a Bhakta. Just like there is a very nice analogy, if you want to win the favor of a wealthy man, it is very difficult to get an appointment from that wealthy man also. And if you think like, okay, let me take some gift and offer to the wealthy man, you don't know what the wealthy man likes, what the wealthy man loves. However, the wealthy man has a child, and children have a simple heart. Somehow, if you can please the child, you can be sure that the wealthy man is also very pleased. Similarly, we are trying to love Krishna. He is the wealthiest, supreme personality, supreme. And we are trying to love him. But how can we love Krishna when we don't even understand him? Is it possible to love someone without understanding them? The answer is no. But here is a simple-hearted devotee of Krishna who is sold out for Krishna and who is ready to give Krishna to him. Krishna is very complex, but the devotee of Krishna is very simple. Krishna is very elevated, but the devotee of Krishna has come down to my level to help me. That is called Guru. So simply if I please the Guru, and yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado yasya prasadan nagatihi kutopi. Simply if I please the Guru, then I can be sure that Radha and Krishna are pleased. This is the concept of becoming a pure devotee, or becoming, in the words of Srila Prabhupada, a great devotee. If you want to become a great devotee doesn't mean that somebody whose name comes in the Bhagavad. That is one of the ways in which a great devotee is depicted. But a great devotee means who is sold out for Krishna and who only serves for the pleasure of Krishna. Atmendriya priti iksha tari balekam krishnendriya priti iksha dhare premanam. So a great devotee is that devotee who only works to satisfy the senses of Guru and Krishna and not to satisfy his own senses. A great devotee is that practicing sadhaka who has a sincere desire to serve Guru and Krishna and tries to do it all the time, avoiding the temptations of Maya as much as possible. Even if such a sadhaka is not free of lust, anger and greed, still if he is sincerely trying to please his spiritual master, avoiding the temptations of Maya as much as possible, he is a great devotee. And one has to, it is mentioned in this translation, with advanced knowledge, Maharaj Priyavrat always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and he did not divert his attention to anything else. So there is a very nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita. It is the, let me tell you the verse number also. It is verse number 2.41. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuranandana bahu shakha hi anantasya buddhayo vyavasayinam. Very nice translation. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. So one of the symptoms of a great devotee is that he is very fixed up and very resolute in his purpose to serve his spiritual master. I don't belong in that category because often I see my spiritual master has told already that the first duty of a disciple is to chant his rounds very sincerely. But in my daily conduct, I see I give second priority to my japa. There are some, I somehow my mind cheats me that there are some other important services which are more important than my japa. So therefore, I become a part of the afternoon chanters club or the evening chanters club, or sometimes the NCC, the night chanters club. So therefore, I certainly do not belong to this category of Vyavasayatmika Bhakti. Ekeha Kuranandana. My spiritual master is my inspiration. He is handling so many projects. He is a GBC. He has so many disciples. He has so many issues, conflict resolutions, and departments, and his own personal health, everything, so many things to take care of. But the first thing which he does in his day is to chant his rounds. This is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kuranandana. This was one of the favorite verses of Srila Prabhupada, and I would like to share with you how Srila Prabhupada relished this verse. One of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, we are trying to relish the point how Priyavrat Maharaj did not divert his attention to anything else. What does it mean? So I'm just trying to
help myself and others understand what does it mean to be in that consciousness. Srila Prabhupada once told his disciples that in 1950s, before he spread the Krishna consciousness throughout the world, he read the commentary on this verse written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He said that he was struck by this commentary, which further fixed him in his resolve to follow Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's order to preach Krishna consciousness in English. So when Srila Prabhupada read this commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this verse, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, he came to the consciousness in which Priyavrat Maharaj was. He never diverted his attention to anything else. So what is that commentary which moved the heart of Srila Prabhupada? Let's try to listen and relish. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, of all kinds of intelligence, the best intelligence the best is the intelligence focused on Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, one's intelligence becomes single-pointed or fixed in determination. So therefore, the test of my advancement is to see how much single-pointed and fixed up is my intelligence or determination in practicing Bhakti Yoga. When my mind offers me sankalpa and vikalpa, do I have the spiritual strength of saying no to my mind? The degree to which I want to enjoy the material nature, to that degree I will be affected by Maya. The degree to which I am able to say no to Maya and remain one-pointed in the instructions of Guru, that is the measure of my advancement. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur continues. One thinks, so when somebody has that fixed determination, one-pointed, what is his consciousness like? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one thinks, the instructions of my spiritual master to worship Krishna by chanting, remembering, serving his feet and so on are my only sadhana, my only sadhya and my only livelihood. I am incapable of giving up these instructions, either in the stage of practice or in the stage of perfection. This clears one tattva vibhrama. Many devotees, they say that, okay, now you have to chant, you have to attend Mangalarti because you are conditioned at least for 12 years. After 12 years, then you become a siddha. You can chant in your own room, or maybe you can translate the books whole night and not come for Mangalarti. All those things they say. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clearly says, either in the stage of practice or in the stage of perfection, one cannot give up the instructions of the spiritual master, thinking that, spiritual master told me to do this because I was a neophyte, now I am an advanced devotee. Either I have to find some new instruction of my spiritual master, or else I have to decide what I want to do in my spiritual. That should never be the case. These instructions are alone my object of desire and my only responsibility. Besides them, I can desire no other responsibility, not even in my dreams. It is the same to me. The last line is very emphatic, please listen. It is all the same to me whether I feel happy or unhappy, or whether my material existence has been eradicated or not. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's one-pointed attention on the instructions of spiritual master is such that whether one is happy following the instructions or whether one is unhappy, one should follow. By following those instructions, whether one goes back to Godhead or not, also that should not, one should not consider that. Whether I go back or not. This is the consciousness of the gopis. In their service to Krishna, they are not bothered whether they go to heaven or they go to hell. So therefore, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples has said that if in the process of Sankirtan, if we die, then we'll take birth again to do the Sankirtan. And in this consciousness of Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, all Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they say that I want to quit my body and go to the place, not to Goloka. I want to go to the place where Srila Prabhupada is doing his preaching pastimes. Her Grace Yamuna Mataji says that the only thing which I want to do
is I again want to hold the mic for Srila Prabhupada as he sings Jai Radha Madhava. So this consciousness is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, and those who have attained this consciousness, I mean, they don't have to try to go back to God. Krishna will do everything to get them back. I mean, they'll get a VIP reception. Krishna will not just hug them, but will dance with them also as they go back to God. So that was what Priyavrat Maharaj had been doing. Now, in such a state of back to Godhead like consciousness, the prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world on the statement that, okay, this is what the scriptures say, you cannot deny. This is your dharma, this is your duty, you have to do it. Now, no sane man will say no to his prescribed duties. Although, because Maharaj Priyavrat was completely in an unalloyed way surrendered to Guru and Krishna, he had no obligations and no liabilities to anybody. But still, he had been asked to do that by Swayambhuva Manu, and Swayambhuva Manu had been asked to do that by Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma had been asked to do that by Lord Krishna. So therefore, when Swayambhuva Manu comes and says, the verse says that prince did not welcome it, although he could not reject his father's suggestion because he was Swayambhuva Manu. But at the same time, he could not welcome it. So therefore, he raised a doubt very conscientiously. That means with due diligence, with due respect, and with due concern, he raised a question. What is that question? Whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling the world. So indirectly, he said no. I'm not very sure, my dear dad, whether I'll be able to focus on my Krishna consciousness. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana. I'm not very sure whether I can sincerely follow Krishna consciousness if I take up this job which you're offering me. And so therefore, to make Priyavrat, and Narad Muni was standing next to him, and he was not able to convince Priyavrat Maharaj. So therefore, in order to convince Priyavrat Maharaj, Lord Brahma had to come down from the highest abode in this material world. And Lord Brahma indirectly comes and says that this is the desire of Krishna. And when Priyavrat Maharaj hears that this is the desire of Krishna, then he decides to take up this path. So therefore, this again highlights the fact that one's surrender is only to Krishna and only to Krishna. We are surrendered to our Guru because Guru is surrendered to Krishna. If Guru, like in case of Bali Maharaj, Shukracharya, gave life to Maharaj Bali. So Bali owed his life to Shukracharya and did everything and anything what he said. But when Shukracharya told that, my dear Bali, please do not surrender to Lord Vishnu, at that time Bali rejected Shukracharya. So a bona fide Guru cannot speak anything else other than the version of Krishna. Although Priyavrat Maharaj did not want to get into this life of administration and household life, but still, because it was Krishna's desire, so he understood that Krishna has a plan, and so therefore he decides to take it after being further convinced by Lord Brahma. And this is very good also. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, when Priyavrat's father Swayambhuva Manu requested him to accept the responsibility of ruling over the world, he did not welcome the suggestion. This is the symptom of a great liberated devotee. So, the symptom of a great liberated devotee is that he is not wanting sense gratification. He has a distaste towards material life. A great opportunity of leadership is being offered to Maharaj Priyavrata, but he is very detached from that leadership role. So therefore, only someone who is detached from leadership can become a good leader. If somebody is planning, plotting, scheming how to become the leader, that person will not be a good leader. But a person who is very detached to this role of leadership and does it as a disinterested obligatory duty which has come to him, only such a person can always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna while performing the daily chores of a leader. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. And Priyavrat Maharaj's stand was not wrong because he tried to protect his bhakti. And every devotee has a right to protect his bhakti. Of course, Priyavrat Maharaj would understand later once he would get into the role of a king or a husband or a father or a ruler. He would understand it later that there cannot be any impediment which can affect Krishna consciousness. The only disturbance which one can face in Krishna consciousness is their personal desire to be disturbed. Otherwise, if one is not committing Vaishnava aparadh, no material situation can affect bhakti. That is the understanding which the Lord wanted to give to the entire world through Maharaj Priyavrata. And Priyavrat Maharaj wanted to protect his bhakti, so the Lord would make it very clear to him later on that this path of Krishna consciousness is very safe, so safe that one can run with closed eyes. The Acharyas say one can run with closed eyes because the person is not using his eyes, but he is using Shastra Chakshu, Smriti and Puranas. Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi. So therefore in the 11th canto, chapter 2, shloka number 35, it is said, O King, one who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never blunder on his path in this material world. Even while running with closed eyes, he will never trip or fall. Because he doesn't need his eyes. He doesn't need his mental concoction. He doesn't need his personal opinions. He only needs the Shastra Chakshu. He only needs the opinion of his spiritual master. He only needs the desire of Krishna. So therefore, even when they are running on this path of devotional service, they are safe. And such people have the understanding that human life is meant for nothing except devotional service. And here, Srila Prabhupada is giving an example how such a liberated soul, Arjuna asks the question to Krishna, what are the symptoms of a sthita prajna? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he eat? Whatever. So similarly, here Prabhupada is giving the symptoms of a liberated devotee. Even though engaged in worldly affairs, he does not take pleasure in them, but he always remains absorbed in the Lord's service. In another place, Srila Prabhupada gives this example to help us understand further. He gives the example of a woman who has a lover outside marriage, a paramour. When a woman is married, she has a husband, she has children, she has in-laws. But if she has a paramour or a lover outside marriage, then she is very careful all the time. She does her household duties very nicely so that the mother-in-law and the husband cannot suspect anything. But in the background of her mind, she is always thinking of her lover. Now this is a very perverted example in this material world. But as the Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 shloka number 1 says, Urdhva moolam atha shakham Ashwatham prahuravyayam Chandamsi yasya paranani yastam vedasavelavi. So everything which is most perverted in this material world is most elevated in the spiritual world. Because it's opposite reflection. So this is a very perverted thing. But if you put the same thing in Krishna consciousness, it becomes the highest thing. That becomes the consciousness of the gopis. They are taking care of their children, but they are thinking of Krishna. They are churning butter, but they are thinking of Krishna. They are doing anything, but they are thinking of Krishna. This is not something impossible. This is possible. This can be practiced. I asked this question a few years ago to one devotee, that how is it possible to remember Krishna while I am doing my daily work? That means I will not be able to focus on my work. So the devotee answered me very nicely, that when initially you are trying to learn a car, And if somebody next to you is talking to you, then you will say, shut up. I'll meet with an accident. Don't talk to me. You are diverting my attention. So at that time, you have to focus completely on the driving. But once you become confident or a little bit focused, a little bit practiced in your driving, then you will switch on the radio and be eating something, talking to someone, fighting with the rickshawalas and driving, as if there is no effort. Similarly, he says that with practice, one can reach that stage of consciousness where they are doing their daily activities, but in the background of their mind, they are always thinking of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. You may be performing a neurosurgery, but you may be thinking of the lotus feet of Krishna. It is possible, it can be practiced, and this is called as the stage of Brahma Satra, in which Priyavrat Maharaj was initiated by Narad Muni. Further, Prabhupada is saying, whilst thus serving the Lord, he deals with the world affairs without being affected. And Prabhupada gives example. For example, he has no attraction for his children, but he cares for them and educates them to become devotees. That means disinterested and obligatory way, he is just performing his duty. He is not dying for his children, but he knows what is his duty and he is doing it. Next, similarly, he speaks to his wife with affectionate words. Now, some people are fanatics. They do not understand the meaning of being detached. But here is the perfect example of a Mahabhagavad. He speaks with his wife with affectionate words, but he is not attached to it. Because he has that higher taste of Krishna. So similarly, by rendering devotional service, a devotee acquires all good qualities of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada gives the example of Krishna having 16,000 wives. Now these wives which Krishna had were not ordinary wives. The Krishna book describes, actually Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes, that Kamadev or Cupid would fire many arrows of lusty desires. There are 10 stages of lust. That's another topic of discussion. So Cupid would fire the arrows of lusty desire on the queens of Krishna. But even after being shot by many arrows, these queens would not develop any lusty desire. And Cupid became so tired that he gave up his bow and arrow in Dwarka and would not use it on any of the queens after that. Just understand who are these queens of Krishna. And these queens of Krishna who are devoid of lusty desires are showing feminine gestures to Krishna and trying to attract Krishna. And Krishna is being a Jitendriya, is talking affectionately to them, making them feel that I am your husband and I am only yours and I am under your control. But he has nothing to do with this. He is completely detached. This is Krishna. And Prabhupada says, before describing, by rendering devotional service, a devotee acquires all the good qualities of the Supreme Lord. In that consciousness was Maharaj Priyavrata. The whole world used to think that he is a henpecked husband. But only Guru and Krishna and he himself knew his actual exalted position. And now Bhagavatam is revealing to us who Maharaj Priyavrata was. So I would like to, this verse is very big. I would like to close this discussion by stating how devotees develop all good qualities. One of the good qualities which is very rare in this material world is compassion. Just like love is very rare in this world, compassion is very rare in this world. Once a disciple approached a spiritual master and asked, "My dear Guru Maharaj, what is the meaning of compassion?" So his Guru Maharaj told him that look at that beggar who is sitting there and observe him for some time and come back to me with your observations and analysis. First, that beggar was sitting there, one old lady passed by and she saw the pitiable state of the beggar and she dropped one gold coin in the bowl of the beggar. Next, a merchant passed by. Seeing the beggar, he dropped a bag filled with 6 gold coins in the bowl of the beggar. And then a devotee passed by. He was carrying some flowers. Seeing the pitiable state of the beggar, he gave some flowers to the beggar. The disciple comes back and relates this to his spiritual master. And he says, so the spiritual master asks him, that who amongst the three is the most compassionate? So the disciples started thinking, maybe the old lady. First of all, the flower guy is fully rejected. What he gave is a flower. I mean, sometimes I also feel why people give flowers to each other. There's no point in gifting a flower bouquet to someone which is of no use the next day. What will you do with it? Throw it away. So he started, maybe the old lady is very compassionate. But the spiritual master explained him that the old lady, she gave the 1 gold coin to the beggar out of pity. When actions are driven by pity, it cannot be called compassion. Then the disciple thought maybe the next person who gives 6 gold coins is most compassionate in the world. Who gives 6 gold coins to a beggar whom he does not know? The spiritual master explained him that actually this merchant, when he was passing by, he was surrounded by other merchants. And in order to get name and fame amongst his community, he dropped 6 gold coins to show his superiority in this system of merchants, in this congregation of merchants. So that was charity done in the mode of passion. So therefore, that is certainly not compassion. Then his spiritual master explained that the devotee who was passing by, he had those flowers which were offered to Krishna. And when he saw the pitiable state of the beggar, to make the beggar feel happy and to make the beggar get the mercy of Krishna, he gave him some flowers. And he did that not out of pity, neither out of desire to get name and fame, but simply because he saw in the beggar the presence of Krishna. He saw the beggar as a part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, that devotee who gave this Mahaprasad flowers to the beggar is compassionate. Compassion can only come from love. One who does not love Krishna can never become compassionate. One who is not in love with the devotees of Krishna cannot become compassionate. So therefore Prabhupada says that one who serves Krishna gets all good qualities of Krishna. Like that, there are various great qualities which are unthinkable in this world of material existence. But simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, one gets all those good qualities which are otherwise impossible to attain. That is the consciousness of a devotee. That is the consciousness of a liberated devotee. That was the consciousness of Maharaj Priyavrat. Maharaj Priyavrat ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Hare Krishna.